Starting us off at number 10 is Batgirl. Now this one has a bit of a heartwarming message at the end, but before we get there, one of the most famous stories in all of the DC universe is The Killing Joke, written by Alan Moore in 1988. In this story, Barbara Gordon as Batgirl squares off against the infamous Joker and shockingly gets shot in the pelvis. Luckily, this bullet didn't kill Batgirl, but it did unfortunately render her as a paraplegic and end her Batgirl career for the rest of her life. Now, even though it was a loss as Batgirl, it was a new beginning for Barbara Gordon as Oracle. Thanks to the writers Kim Yale and John Ostrander, instead of axing the character of Barbara Gordon, they went ahead and made her a new kind of superhero. A superhero who works from her desk constantly, helping the world's heroes through a worldwide communications network. So, once again, it's a loss as Batgirl, but a huge win for Barbara Gordon as Oracle and the rest of the DC universe. A true example that humans of all abilities can be superheroes. So, maybe it's not a loss after all. I just really wanted to share that inspiring bit of comic book history. But now, let's really get to the losses. At number 9, we have Miss Marvel. One of the longest rivalries of all time in comic book history is between Rogue and Miss Marvel. In the crazy packed issue of Avengers Annual number 11 written by Chris Claremont, we see the first appearance of X-Men's Rogue and the return of Carol Danvers as Miss Marvel after a controversial year-long absence after she gave birth to a child who was later revealed as the villain Marcus Immortus in Avengers number 200. At the end of the book, writers sent Miss Marvel back to Marcus's home dimension with him, and the Avengers let her go. Not being a huge fan of that choice, Chris Claremont wrote Miss Marvel back in as a mysterious blonde woman who almost fell to her death off of the Golden Gate Bridge until she was rescued by Spider-Woman. It was then revealed that this mysterious woman was actually Carol Danvers, and that in a previous fierce fight against Mystique's adopted daughter Rogue, Danvers temporarily had all of her powers stolen, thus giving Rogue not only all her Miss Marvel's powers, but memories too. Spider-Woman then took Carol back to Professor X, hoping that he would be able to use his telepathic powers to unlock Carol's memories, but alas, only was able to unlock some of them. Even the ones she did get back, she lost the emotional connection to. Now that's a huge loss. At number 8, we have one of the many Green Lanterns, Guy Gardner. Back when Green Lantern Abin Sur crashed his ship off the coast of California, there was a 50-50 chance the ring would choose Hal Jordan or Guy Gardner. Hal just happened to be a bit closer to the crash site at the time. Eventually, Guy did get his ring though and kept most of his crime fighting on Earth, while Hal was off in the cosmos fighting otherworldly threats and all things like that. Guy was known to be a bit of a jerk though, and a bit of a hothead. Many people, because of his demeanor, often didn't think of Guy as a real Green Lantern. So after a while of getting teased and not willing to take any more of the pestering, Guy challenged Hal to an all-out battle in Gerard Jones's Guy Gardner Reborn number 1. What was the award? The winner would become the official Green Lantern of Sector 2814. Guy was the loser and had to give up his ring and say goodbye to the Green Lantern Corps, and even though he wouldn't admit it, this gutted him. The Green Lantern Corps gave Guy purpose and drive. Guy ultimately lost it all. That being said, a little bit later he was back in business after stealing the yellow ring off a dead Sinestro's finger and put his newfound powers right back to good use. He might have been a bit of a jerk, but he still sounds like a good guy to me. Get it?
Number 7. Secret Empire. In Avengers Endgame, Steve uses future knowledge to obtain the scepter. He says, "Hail Hydra," Rumlow gives it over, no elevator fight needed. Nice. It was a fun moment in the theater, but the line "Hail Hydra" comes right from the comics, but this time around it's not that entertaining. The last words come from Steve after the Avengers standoff event, where it's revealed he's actually a sleeper agent of Hydra. Another pawn of the Red Skull after all. This was huge news. I mean, fans were really upset. Readers were sending in death threats to the writers. The 2017 series Secret Empire was wild. The team had to go against their own leader Cap, who was trying to take over the government with Hydra, and then eventually run all of the United States. It was crazy. Bad Steve took out Rick Jones, he took out Black Widow. I mean, it's fair, readers were upset, really. This is a nightmare. In the end, it was concluded that Bad Cap was a double and Good Cap was actually locked in the Cosmic Cube.
Bringing us back to the Marvel Universe, at number 6 we have Quicksilver. In Brian Michael Bendis' 8-issue series titled House of M, Quicksilver is stripped of all of his mutant abilities, and funny enough, it's kind of by his own hand. The story begins by all of the mutants discussing the fate of Quicksilver's sister Wanda Maximoff because of her mental instability. Talks of destroying her are even brought up. But luckily for Wanda, Quicksilver wasn't about to have any of that. So, he took matters into his own hands. He immediately reported what was being talked about to Wanda, and then she then used her reality warping powers to cause her entire reality to change. In this new reality, mutants reign supreme, with Magneto being in charge. Slowly realizing that this was a fake reality, and arguments erupted between Magneto and son Quicksilver, with Quicksilver lashing out at Magneto, telling him that he had to do what he had to do to save his sister, because those he trusted most were wanting to kill her. Enraged by her father's choice to choose mutants over his children, Wanda uttered the 3 fateful words that brought an end to it all: no more mutants. Thus dropping the mutant population from thousands down to just 198. Quicksilver not being one of them. Ouch. I guess that's what you get for trying to help out your sister. Moral of the story, kids, don't help out your siblings. Just kidding, I know my brother and parents are watching. Hi guys.
Number 5. Jason Todd. Of course this is going to be on the list. A Death in the Family is a 4-part storyline written by Jim Starlin and published in 1988. It contains perhaps one of the biggest, darkest moments in DC Comics history because we see the Joker beat the second Robin, Jason Todd. And when I say beat him, I mean he beat him with a crowbar and then used an explosive for good measure. He was a goner, for sure, and also, it was your parents' fault. Pause this video, go yell at them, come back, like it, click play. Yeah, DC left it up to readers how this story ends for Robin. Nowadays, fans are coming together on Twitter to see director cuts of movies that haven't even been released yet. So it's a little better now. We have a bit more of a squad. The actual beatdown, of course, is awful, but emotionally the Joker destroys the boy wonder as well. He used Jason Todd's birth mother, he blackmailed her in order to get closer to Jason, and it worked. Betrayed by his birth mother, and then the Joker too killed her. Double whammy, triple whammy. 4 whammies, I don't know, all the whammies.
At our number 4 spot, we have the luscious Goldilocks super buff god of thunder himself, Thor. Our Lord and Savior Stan Lee, with the help of Larry Lieber, brought us all Journey into Mystery number 83 in August of 1962. Thor was known as an arrogant brawler who at most times was not able to put his ego aside. So, Odin, father of Thor, decided to send Thor off to planet Earth. What gives? When I was younger, I was sent to my room and couldn't leave. This guy gets the entire planet? What's he complaining about? Well, not only was he sent to Earth, he was also stripped of all of his powers as well as brainwashed to believe that he was actually Earth-born Donald Blake, a doctor from the United States. On a trip to Norway, Thor/Dr. Blake is attacked by aliens that started invading the area while he was on his trip. Dr. Thor then retreats into the hills and stumbles upon a hidden chamber in a hidden cave. Once there, a walking stick appears and he tries to use the stick to push a boulder in front of the doorway to hide from the aliens, which obviously doesn't work. He then smashes the cane on the boulder out of frustration, and the cane, with a flash of lightning, transforms into his famous hammer, as well as him, Dr. Blake, back into Thor, God of Thunder. This was how Odin needed to teach his son kindness and humility. But now it just makes me think that there's a possibility that I'm actually the God of Thunder too, and I just haven't had my moment yet. Anything? Okay, fine. Maybe it's one of you.
Coming in at number 3, we've got Jean Grey. To be immensely powerful. Too bad the world isn't fair and something can always go wrong. Take Jean Grey for example. Telekinetic and telepathic powers beyond compare, a connection with the powerful cosmic entity the Phoenix, a bunch of awesome mutant pals. What could be better? Well, not experiencing a terrifying magnetic aneurysm, I guess. Yeah, that did not turn out too well for poor Jean Grey. After discovering that their new member Zorn was actually Magneto in disguise, the X-Men jumped into action. This did not prevent Magneto from releasing an insane wave of magnetic energy, absolutely wrecking Jean's brain though. Unfortunately, there was nothing she could do about it and she perished almost instantly. Yikes.
Coming in at our number 2 is the OG stud muffin himself, Superman. In Alan Moore's Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, released in 1986, Supes is forced to fight the entirety of his rogues gallery, later finding out it was Mr. Mixie Spitlick behind it all along. Superman has one rule, and that's not to kill. Unfortunately, Supes is finally pushed to his ultimate limit and kills Mr. Mixie Spitlick. Supes feels beyond any type of guilt ever imagined and goes back to his Fortress of Solitude, where he enters a room filled with kryptonite. But not just any kind of kryptonite. Gold kryptonite, which is a specific kind of kryptonite that can leave Superman absolutely powerless. Supes leaves his Fortress of Solitude after using the gold kryptonite on himself and returns to society just as a mortal man feeling too guilty of finally abusing his power, at least in his own mind. This time he just felt like it was time to hang up the cape. Sorry Supes, how about I go buy you a beer and you let me try on your cape. Now, finally coming in at our number 1 spot, we leave the DC and Marvel universes entirely and go back to my favorite universe again. At our number 1 spot, we have Michelangelo from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Mikey, the party dude, the goofball, the ultra rad cool skater dude. Well, Not anymore. Released in October of just last year, IDW Publishing, along with the OGs Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird, and new guy Tom Waltz, was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin. This series opens up on one turtle in particular wearing a black mask, bringing readers up to speed on how New York has changed in the last few decades. New York is now under the power of the Foot Clan, operated by Karai's son, Oroku Hiroto. Spoiler alert, but it is revealed in the end of this issue that Michelangelo is the last remaining turtle and is out to seek revenge on Hiroto for killing his brothers years ago. This story paints Mikey as a much older ninja who is not the goofy, party-going turtle he used to be. Later in the issue, after a failed attempt to take down the Oroku Hiroto, Mikey tries to commit the act of seppuku. There are currently 3 issues out of this storyline and 2 more set to release later this year, and I for one can't wait to read the rest of this one and see where it ends up. But one thing is for sure, our favorite shelled, cowabunga screaming turtle lost everything. Or did he?
Kicking off the list at number 10, Avengers Under Siege. Written by Roger Stern, released in 1987, this is their first big battle after taking on Loki. It's a fan favorite, so I figured I'd start with this one. It began back in Avengers issue 270, when the Avengers were still living in Tony Stark's mansion in New York. It was comfortable until Baron Zemo and the Masters of Evil stormed the mansion. Tigra and Black Knight were injured severely, and Hercules was beaten so hard he went into a coma. And while they still were in for a hot minute, the Masters of Evil destroyed everybody's belongings, including the only photo left of Captain America's mother. That was a pretty sad page. Number 9, Secret Invasion. With Disney announcing all these new Marvel shows, we can start speculating where the plot might go. Like for example, Secret Invasion was announced, and now Emilia Clarke has signed on to do it, along with Samuel L. Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn, so it's clear some Skrulls are probably going to be in the picture. In the comics, Secret Invasion was an event that took place where Skrulls wanted to take over Earth. They thought it was rightfully theirs, so they're like, yeah, let's do this. So what better way to take over the world than to blend in like one of the greatest heroes on it? So after the Skrulls had experimented on the Illuminati, they put one Skrull secretly in every team in all these states. So with Sharon Carter making some shady phone calls after she was pardoned in the final credits scene of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I'm betting that she's already secretly a Skrull. Number 8, House of M. This 8-part event written by Brian Michael Bendis starts off rather beautiful, dare I say. Wanda Maximoff is giving birth to her new twins. Vision is by her side, and then Xavier's voice just pops in out of nowhere, demanding that Wanda returns the world to normal. She refuses, and she hangs on to her children, and they shatter. The world goes away, and Wanda returns back to the normal world, where she has no twins, but she's in a dark room on Genosha. And he uses his powers to put her back to sleep. Then in comes Magneto, and he asks about his daughter's progress, and Charles is afraid, because at this point, her power is too much to handle. Now in Avengers Tower, the team is discussing on what to do with Wanda. The ideas are getting kind of dark, because they have to. Wolverine is suggesting that they just take out Wanda, just killing her, which is pretty dark. But then when Quicksilver passes on this gossip, Wanda then warps reality into a world called House of M, where mutants were top dogs and Magneto and his family just ruled them all. Other Marvel heroes were given their desires, like Peter was married to Gwen Stacy, Cyclops is married to Emma Frost, and Doctor Strange is a psychologist. The world is completely different, but the only person who remembers real life is Wolverine, the same guy who suggested that they Wanda. Things took a turn, and the event became even more stressful when Wanda uttered those 3 words in issue 7. No more mutants.
Coming in at number 7 and staying with the Green Lanterns, we have Hal Jordan. That's right. What's the old saying? Payback's a bad thing? Yeah, you know how the saying goes. Unfortunately for Guy, he didn't get his revenge, but rather Hal Jordan was overpowered by other Alpha Green Lanterns. During the final Crisis story arc, Hal Jordan is awoken to a group of Alpha Lanterns accusing him for the murder of Orion and believing that he is under possession of the evil god's Apocalypse. After the testimony of Alpha Lantern Kraken in the final Crisis number 5 written by Grant Morrison, Hal is convicted for the crime and stripped of his ring and Green Lantern status, leaving him just another mere mortal. But don't worry, he gets his powers back because of course he would. He's Hal freaking Jordan.
Number 6, Axis. When Red Skull abducted numerous mutants and Inhumans, Magneto tracked him down. Now at the same time, Scarlet Witch, Rogue, and Havoc were captured by Red Skull's S-Men and brought to the island/horror camp. The Avengers escaped and saved Magneto. Magneto gave Red Skull the beatdown of a lifetime. He got caught up in the moment and went a little bit too far perhaps. Magneto says that he did what had to be done, and he thinks that he saved countless amount of lives. But then Red Onslaught rises to the challenge. Red Skull is reborn, this time he's bigger and badder. The X-Men and Avengers team up to stop Red Onslaught, where a number of heroes inverted. Yeah, their personality and moral compass just totally flipped. which certainly didn't help the situation at all. But the fun part is when our villains also get inverted and they join the Avengers to stop Red Onslaught. So it's a mess. It's a big fun mess.
Coming in number 5, we've got SHAZAM. What? SHAZAM? The closest thing to Superman we've got without getting Superman. Who's gonna beat him in a fight? I suppose you can't necessarily count on him to be at 100% mental fortitude though, considering that underneath all of that ancient magic and musculature, there is a 15-year-old with a strong heart. There's a lot that goes on in a teenager's brain that might cause him to make some bad decisions, you know? Like in the case of SHAZAM versus Harley Quinn, for example. Quinn tosses a hammer at SHAZAM, who seems to think it's gonna be an easy fight. He has the strength and reflexes to deal with that hammer no problem. And here's the thing, he keeps talking to Quinn after he catches the hammer and doesn't really do anything with the wayward weapon. So what happens next? The hammer explodes. Oh boy. SHAZAM, you could have won the fight, but you didn't.
Number 4, Civil War. Okay, the opening scene of Endgame is wild. The remaining heroes, minus Tony Stark, head out into space to take on Thanos, with the help this time of Captain Marvel. They actually sneak up on him and they cut the gauntlet off his arm in like 6 seconds. They kind of win really fast. See, when the Avengers are united and they have a plan, things work out. The other crew in space in Infinity War couldn't even get the gauntlet off of Thanos. Quill was freaking out, the gravity was off, Thanos had the stones, it was tricky. But if Civil War never happened, I fully believe that they would have handled Thanos as a team much sooner. But by the time Thanos begins his quest for the stones, Tony and Steve aren't even on speaking terms. Okay. This all comes down to the events from Captain America Civil War. Now this ends with Tony and Steve fighting it out and Cap drops the shield. Tony blasts off Bucky's arm. It's heartbreaking to say the least, but it's one of my favorite Marvel movies. For some reason. I like watching people lose. I don't know what it is. Number 3, Green Lantern. Now this one comes from Justice League issue 5. It's been referred to as the Punch since. In this comic, Batman comes in to take over the Justice League International, and Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, doesn't share the same enthusiasm as the rest of the team. For more than one issue, he makes it very clear that he doesn't like this new leader. So naturally, this conflict was growing, and although Batman was obviously a better fit for the role, he challenged Batman to a fight without the use of his power ring, and then Batman proceeded to knock him out with one punch. Of course, he's Batman, and without the ring, you're just a guy. You're just a regular Guy Gardner. Blue Beetle even jumped up. He got pumped, and he started yelling, one punch, one punch, one punch, just adding insult to injury, literally. This is a great moment, an even greater lesson, but Green Lantern getting knocked out by a human punch shouldn't have happened in the first place. Don't start fights you can't win without the only thing that makes you win those fights. I don't know, just my advice. Number 2, Avengers Red Zone. Avengers Volume 3 Issue 65, titled Avengers Red Zone, is a 6-parter that begins with this mysterious red cloud coming through South Dakota. Oh, this is a nightmare. So it's bringing a plague, basically. It's a red mist of doom. It's kind of like the movie The Mist, but without monsters, although it's just as terrifying. So everybody wears masks, because you know that's what happens when there's a plague and you don't want to, you know, die, you wear masks. Weird concept, I know. But it's still a war zone. People are dying off fast. Now in comes Captain America and the Avengers to save the day, figure out what's going on. And the team struggles here a lot. They get sick, they get infected, their motivation is just low, their team members are dying off, and things come to a fun turn when Iron Man and Black Panther create a cure. Great, but Iron Man gets trapped by Red Skull come part 6. The team is not looking good at this point. Cap is down, so Tony takes his suit off and exposes himself to the mist in order to give Steve CPR. No sacrifice, no victory. Sam Witwicky. And finally, number 1, Infinity Gauntlet. Coming from the minds of Jim Starlin, George Perez, and Ron Lim, Infinity Gauntlet was released in 1991, and Avengers Infinity War mirrored a lot of what happened from that event. Yes, Thanos wanted to take out half the universe because he wanted to impress Mistress Death this time around. He wanted to be her equal, whereas in the movie, he just wanted to fill people's bellies. The film adaptation was, in my opinion, Marvel's best work. All those characters in one movie, it felt smooth, didn't feel long, it didn't feel slow at any part. It's kind of great. In the movie, when Thanos is obtaining these gems, he toys with the Avengers in a similar way. In the comic, he turned them into strings and cubes, and then in Infinity War, Drax and Mantis had that happen to them as well. Even in theaters, I was like, this looks familiar, the whole cube thing. There's plenty of other references, it's awesome, and it's hard to make a list about the Avengers losing and not including the time we all paid them over $2 billion to lose. And that was Avengers Infinity War. Thanks, Russo brothers. Killing it. Well guys, there you have it. The Avengers are great for the most part, but sometimes you need to get your ass handed to you in order to make the step up. You gotta lose and then win, it's part of the fun. Kicking off the list at number 10, The Man of Steel, Superman. Superman Batman Volume 1, Issue 44. The Strange Favor storyline begins with a movie shoot. How exciting, I wonder what they're filming. Well, they're filming a Superman Batman movie called World's Finest, which has a pretty good ring to it. I'm already intrigued. It feels like Tropic Thunder almost at first. These other guys are playing these superheroes. Batman's being played by a former Bond actor in that universe, Jason Wish, and he's going for it. His eyes are all watery. He's explaining this made up origin, and Superman offside, like the Superman and the Batman, are watching them film from afar, and Batman isn't really into this whole idea. He doesn't like how they don't know his true story, and now they're just making stuff up. But Superman reassures them that it's only because they're interested in the mysterious bat. Out of nowhere, Livewire comes in, who's almost as evil as LimeWire. Almost. And then she takes Jason as hostage, demanding that she receives half of his $12 million pay, which is a pretty big chunk of money. Robert Pattinson's only getting $5 million for the next Batman, but he's getting 20 for Batman 2, so it's okay. So the Superman flies down and intervenes, and then he gets surprised when the prop kryptonite on set gets blasted with electricity and in turn explodes, leaving pieces of Superman's only weakness stuck in his face. I love how they have real kryptonite on set. That's good, that's commitment. It's like when they use real bones instead of props in the original Poltergeist movie. What could possibly go wrong, right? Number 9, the Wasp. We'll get the appetite going right off the bat here. Okay, Janet Van Dyne, aka the Wasp, first appeared in comics in Tales to Astonish, issue 44. Genetically engineered by Dr. Hank Pym, Ant-Man, with the help of Pym particles and biosynthetic wings, now Janet was one of the founding members of the Avengers. Not too shabby. She could generate bioelectric blasts from her hand, knocking down even the fiercest of foes. But when the Blob gets a hold of her in the Ultimatum storyline, her sting just wouldn't cut it. The story comes from the Ultimates, which is already just a darker take on all of our characters and all those stories, and in it we see Earth's mightiest meeting their violent end. As for the Wasp, during the flood in New York City, she ended up being separated from the team, and when they finally found her, it was too late. She had become a midnight snack. Hank decides to get payback in a similar manner. Giant Man then grabs the Blob and Ozzy Osbourne's his head right off. Payback is gross, but necessary. And before we continue on with this list, let's brighten the mood a little bit. Maybe go and hit that thumbs up. I don't know, get some spirits back to normal. Also, it helps the channel out so much. You're the best, thank you so much. Back to this dark list. Number 8, Batman. Coming from the 1993 Batman Nightfall storyline, we get to meet Bane in a terrifying way. He literally broke Batman. The Beast started by making Batman's worst day come to life as he freed every villain in Arkham Asylum, so now Batman's gotta try and round up all those psychopaths, which is already exhausting, and Batman's weaker now, mentally and physically. And when Bane goes to the Batcave because yes, he knows Batman's secret identity, he beats Bruce down, and when the moment is right, he lifts the Caped Crusader above his head and drops him down onto his knee, breaking his back. Now this was a huge moment in the comics. When Batman goes down for the count, the mantle was then passed along to Azrael. And we just broke down a bunch of alternate versions of Batman in the last week or two, so make sure you go and check out one of those 3 lists as well after you're done here. Batman has had quite the run in comics. Interesting time.
Coming in number 7, we've got NIGHTCRAWLER. Most folks like living life without a gaping hole in their chest, but most folks also can't teleport around in the blink of an eye. It's a tough world for a teleporting superhero, especially one with a drive to help as many people as possible. NIGHTCRAWLER, being a genuine hero, puts his life on the line and pays the price. In a future where there are no more mutants thanks to a lovely spell cast by Scarlet Witch, only one hope remains. Incidentally, this hope comes in the form of a mutant girl named Hope. Subtle. When Bastion, a super advanced sentinel from the future, comes back to kill Hope, NIGHTCRAWLER gets in his way. Unfortunately, in the way also means that the Sentinel's arm is right through NIGHTCRAWLER's chest. Oops. In a last-ditch effort to keep Hope alive, NIGHTCRAWLER uses all of his strength to teleport her away from the murderous machine. Once he completes that task, he runs out of fuel and dies.
Number 6, the Hulk. Mark Millar's Old Man Logan begins in Volume 3 of Wolverine at issue 66, and this is now a future where supervillains have won. Sads. Hulk and She-Hulk had kids. Weird. The Hulklings, who would beat the crap out of you if you didn't pay rent, because basically everybody had their own territory, so Logan had to pay up. Hawkeye, who is also much older and now also blind, needed Logan's assistance to get across the country and deliver a secret package. This was a way Logan could make some of that rent money, so perfect, let's do it. Now when they get back from their trip, things have progressed in an awful way. Hulk Gang took out Logan's entire family because Well, they were bored, of course. They're a little messed up in the head if you didn't already piece that together. So Logan dishes out some payback. No more games, no more talking. Logan's here to now get this done. Logan gets Banner right through the old chest plate, but we all know what happens next. He freaks out, he hooks out rather, and then he eats Logan. If you can't beat him, eat him, I guess. Now you'd think this would for sure be the end of it, but that's when Logan pops out from inside Banner. After what's gonna happen to Wolverine near the end of this list, it's nice to see him come out on top, or just come out of a body in general, that's fun.
Coming in at our halfway point is the ever so cool and almost invincible Wonder Woman. Back in 1969, Denny O'Neil took an awkward spin on the Wonder Woman comics, thinking he was being a progressive feminist, but in reality was just stripping Wonder Woman of all of her powers and duties. Along with master artist and storyteller Mike Sekowsky, O'Neil wrote a storyline with Wonder Woman giving up her powers, lasso, and wicked cool costume to be an independent working woman as an undercover spy of the highest caliber. Doesn't sound like a terrible idea. For a bit, right? Well, reactions were a bit mixed at first and then slowly became a bit more opposed and then finally became strongly against it. Gloria Steinem, a huge icon and activist for the women's liberation movement, wrote an article for a magazine that stated the storyline was anti-feminist. It was believed to be anti-feminist due to the fact that she was stripped of her powers and was no longer stronger than man, as well as learning martial arts from a man as well. She became just another woman living in a man's world. As well, she was still fighting man's battles. Since then, O'Neil has gone on record and profusely apologized, saying that he thought he was helping the women's movement, but agrees now that he was far from. No matter what, to me, taking away a superhero's powers, no matter how the hero identifies, seems like a bad idea. Imagine taking away Superman's powers and reading about the life and stories of Clark Kent for the next decade. Boring.
Number 4, Green Arrow. Green Lantern, Green Arrow, issue 85. Let's talk about it. The first few pages, we see Oliver Queen walking at night trying to get home when all of a sudden some punks, some fools try and rob him. Now this is a day in the park for most of our superheroes. Now it's not like he was tired or maybe he didn't see it coming like Peter, he ate too much cake. He actually was in a bad mood. He had lady troubles, he was ready to fight. He was like, okay, I'm looking for this. You guys picked the wrong guy, let's go. He's like getting warmed up. He was feeling good. And then a guy pulled out a crossbow, because you know, all those thugs that carry crossbows through the city, and then Ollie gets shot right through the shoulder with an arrow. Irony at its finest. Number 3, Avengers Disassembled. Brought to us from the mind again of Brian Michael Bendis, Avengers Disassembled is a 5-parter that brings the team together just to be torn apart again. It is a ride. The story begins with the Avengers mansion sensors blasting to warn the team of an intruder. Now the intruder is the Jack of Hearts, who actually died beforehand saving Cassie, Ant-Man's daughter. So what's going on here? Why is he here? Well, Jack blows up, taking half the mansion out with him, along with the life of Ant-Man. That's crazy. And then the Vision crash lands with the Quinjet, starts attacking the rest of the survivors, and then She-Hulk comes out and rips Vision into two. And then while She-Hulk was going nuts, she accidentally hurt Wasp, Captain America, and Captain Britain. She-Hulk ended up leaving the group because of the guilt inside after she just wreaked havoc. Now this whole event is wild, even before Scarlet Witch is revealed to be behind it all. Spoiler alert. This is when Wanda lost her 2 kids because, well, they weren't actually her 2 kids, they were created from Mephisto, so she was upset. Eventually she was defeated by Doctor Strange and Magneto took over from there. Now this is where people, and I, want Wanda to go in the MCU. Perhaps studying the Darkhold and the recent loss of Tommy and Billy, she might make a big bad comeback. Who knows? Number 2, Martian Manhunter. In Final Crisis 1, John Jones' Martian Manhunter gets trapped in a prison. See, he originally went there undercover as John Jones in his human form and would regularly report back to Batman. That's when the villains decided to break free and then he was left behind. It's not looking good at this point, because Human Flame had now given the villain Libra instructions to kill Martian Manhunter. So Libra went and he did so. He stabbed Martian Manhunter with a staff right in front of the entire staff, the entire secret society of supervillains, and then upon his death he returned back to his Martian form, and in his final moments he still managed to send that message back to the Justice League. Not even death will stop this guy's plans. The Justice League held his funeral on his home planet, Mars, with Superman giving the eulogy. His final moments were expanded on in the Final Crisis Requiem storyline, teaching us more about his homeworld and the inhabitants of it. You can find this in Justice League Volume 2 in issues 6 and 7. And finally, number 1, my personal favorite, Wolverine. I mentioned Wolverine getting something bad. This is it. Now we're going to talk about it. This next one comes from Punisher Volume 6, Issue 17, appropriately titled Aim Low, written by Garth Ennis. So we find Wolverine with his face, Well, without a face. His face is gone at this point. He got his face blown off by the Punisher, and you'd think that would be pretty bad, but it of course gets so much worse. Frank Castle fixes his aim a little bit lower and then pulls the trigger, reassuring Logan that they'll grow back. Frank was trying to get Wolverine out of the way, and this put him down for a bit, definitely, but he's still not out for the count just yet. Never turn your back on the knucklehead. Wolverine is literally crawling towards the Punisher now. He's like, shoot me, bomb me, cut me up, I don't care, I'm just gonna keep coming at you. Well, it's kinda hard to move when there's a steamroller on top of you, no? The fact that he did it slowly too, starting with the feet and then slowly moving it up to his head and then putting it in park when it was on his head, I can't even fathom what this would feel like. I can't pull a hangnail some days. Like a steamroller, what kind of Austin Powers way to go out is that?
Coming in number 10, we've got The Thing. The beefiest, brawniest, burliest, surliest member of the Fantastic Four doesn't often lose in a battle of might. Wits could be another thing, and when it comes to speed and timing, things could end poorly too. But on most days, there isn't going to be anyone stronger than Benjamin Grimm. After being hit with some wild cosmic rays, his body underwent some crazy changes. His skin became rough and rock-like, taking on an orangey hue and becoming near impenetrable. His toughness and density are through the roof, making him very hard to hurt. Along with his inbuilt armor, he also has a whole lot of additional wicked physical traits. Based on strength alone, he's one of the most powerful characters going. In fact, most consider him a consistent and classic rival to the Hulk. Incredible stamina, durability, and sensory adaptation round out his legendary bulk, and he technically is immortal if he chose not to revert to his human form every year. He doesn't age, can't really get hurt, and packs quite a wallop. In fact, after standing toe-to-toe with the mighty Green Mutant many times, the Thing has indeed definitively won against the Hulk before. So how does he manage to lose a fight? Well, you can't win them all. When the Hulk heads to New York to get revenge on the Avengers, the Fantastic Four is waiting for him. Ben Grimm hops out in front and takes on the Hulk, and the battle is pretty evenly matched. However, at the end of the massively destructive fight, the Hulk reigns supreme. The Thing collapses, totally wiped, and the Hulk is able to move right along. Dang, and we thought that incredible stamina would go on forever. Maybe next time, right? Coming in number 9, we've got Mark Grayson. This one's a bit of a bummer, don't you think? A burgeoning young hero getting his ass beat by his own father. The father that seemed to promise to protect the Earth from any threat? Such is the life of a Viltrumite. Mark Grayson, aka Invincible, was just getting a handle on his powers. He'd realized how strong he truly could be, but his dad, Omni-Man, was definitely stronger. But that's not too big a deal, right? Papa Nolan is gonna stick around and defend the Earth too, yeah? Teach Mark the ways of being a hero, maybe hit some sweet dance moves to a song called Hot Milk. Wrong. Omni-Man is actually evil and looking to conquer as many planets as possible. Damn, dude. When Mark attempts to stop him after he kills a plethora of supers, Omni-Man lays an absolute beatdown on his son. It is super brutal, my goodness. Coming in number 8, we've got John Stewart. One of Earth's Green Lanterns, John Stewart is blessed with all the powers one would expect. As leader of the Green Lantern Corps and a member of its honor guard, he's quite the formidable fighter. Renowned for his sharpshooting and building skills, not many can hold a candle to this hero. However, he isn't perfect, and all of the powers in the world won't help you if you get too cocky. The classic tale of human hubris. Nobody's immune to it, no way. While working with Martian Manhunter to contain the anti-life equation, they realized they'd need to save the planet of Xanshi. The folks there were slowly being poisoned, and to make matters worse, the planet was laden with bombs that were set to blow. John, thinking that he was super powerful and unstoppable, decided to fly an injured Martian Manhunter to safety before heading down solo. Guess what though? The bombs were yellow. You know, the one color that renders a Green Lantern useless. So all he could do was get the hell out of Dodge, leaving Xanshi to an explosive doom. Damn.
Number 7, Spider-Man. Coming in hot from the Amazing Spider-Man 700.3, The Black Lodge Part 1. We open in Queens, New York. It's past 2 in the morning. Peter is regretting having seconds at Aunt May's. He's just trying to go home, but now he's got to go face to face with Firebrand. Peter even realizes that already this fight has gone on for too long. Usually this would be a piece of cake, but Peter ate too much cake. He was actually too full. He was tired. Now this is tedious. And then when Firebrand gets a hold of Peter's neck, it really starts to hurt. Firebrand unloads everything that he has, and then he sees Peter's suit start to melt and then rip apart. It's actually really brutal and pretty gory. By the time help arrives, he's unrecognizable. The cleanup crew literally thinks he's another supervillain. They're like, get him out of here, this burnt, crispy man. Firebrand 2.0, whoever you are, bye. Peter received third-degree burns on 80% of his body. Aunt May, where's the aloe? We need some aloe stat.
Coming in number 6, we've got Eric O'Grady, and this one is painful. Eric O'Grady, one of the least lovable Ant-Men, lived his life like a bit of a loser. However, he was still indeed Ant-Man, with all of the powers that came along with the title. Plenty of potential there, that's for sure, and even though he was no saint in life, he was definitely a hero in death. Somehow a child fell into the clutches of the Descendants, a group of artificially intelligent super cyborgs. They may look human and act human, but they definitely aren't, and this is proven when they delve deep into the depths of cruelty and stomp poor Eric to death. He saved the kid, but was unable to come away with his own life. Ouch. After being reduced to a bloody pulp, the cyborgs also took his likeness and created a new Ant-Man, one that would infiltrate his old team and betray them at a critical junction.
Number 5, Age of Ultron. This one just starts off hot, right off the bat. Hawkeye is sneaking into this abandoned building, just taking dudes out slowly. They have Spider-Man captured and he looks terrible. He looks like he just got hit by a freight train. Now in the MCU, Tony and Bruce are the masterminds behind Ultron, but in the comics, it was actually Hank Pym. Ultron made his first debut back in 1968 in Avengers issue 54, and in the comics, Hank Pym was actually the father of Ultron. He actually has the same brain patterns as Hank Pym, because he figured it needed personality, much like our MCU version of Ultron is another personality of Tony Stark's. So cut to the comic event Age of Ultron by Brian Michael Bendis. We see Ultron in all of his glory and it's quite menacing. The world is just trashed. He's from the future and he's here to take over the planet. The death toll reaches billions, including some of our favorite heroes. If you haven't read it, strongly recommend. Much better than the movie Age of Ultron, which was just like the weekend of Ultron, rather.
Coming in number 4, we've got Iron Man. Oh, Tony, if only you were better at getting along with people. All throughout Iron Man's history, Tony Stark has been a bit insufferable. Although he's a super genius with a heart of, well, maybe not gold, but something like it, he tends to rub people the wrong way. So even if he manages to defeat plenty of supervillains and keep the world safe, he's still got some other stuff to contend with. From time to time, he'll do something that really makes another hero mad, and that hero might decide to fight Iron Man. And in a lot of these cases, Iron Man doesn't fare all that well. Like, he's lost to pretty much every mainline Avenger at some point, from Spider-Man to the Hulk to Thor to even Black Widow. It's tough when you paint such a big target on your back, but I'm sure he understands.
Coming in at number 3 spot, we have the captain himself, Captain America. In Rick Remender's Captain America Volume 7, number 21, entitled The Iron Nail Part 5, we find Captain America square off with the not as popular but super dangerous villain, Ran Shen, aka the Iron Nail. This issue begins with Commander Duggan authorizing a laser attack on the Gungnir helicarrier, built by S.H.I.E.L.D., from a S.H.I.E.L.D. satellite while S.H.I.E.L.D. personnel are still on board. As Captain America and foe the Iron Nail continue their battle in pursuit of Captain finding out how to deactivate the Gungnir, Director Maria Hill tells him that he must destroy the core reactor. Cap continues and finally reaches the core with the Iron Nail right behind him. Just as the Gungnir destroys S.H.I.E.L.D. satellite, the Iron Nail stabs Cap with his tendrils and drains him of all of his super soldier serum, leaving Cap with no powers, as well as aging him back to his natural old man state. However, Cap does make one last final shield toss, destroying the reactor, and Sam Wilson comes to his rescue, defeating the Iron Nail and making an escape with the now elderly Steve Rogers. The good guys saved the day once again, but this time, Cap paid the ultimate price by losing everything that made him Captain America. Well, not everything, because after all, you can take his super soldier serum, but you can never take his heroic heart, nor his heroic soul. You make us all proud, and I salute you, Captain America, even as a Canadian.
Coming in number 2, we've got Captain America. Now the tables have turned a little. We talked about Iron Man having a tough time stacking up against his longtime pals a little earlier. Now is his time to shine. In Civil War, we see Captain America and Iron Man get into a bit of a kerfuffle, and by a bit of a kerfuffle, I do mean brutal brawl with all sorts of stuff on the line. It's a crazy fight with plenty of killer moments and momentum swings, but in the end, Tony Stark comes out on top. Damn, Cap. And finally at number 1, we've got Silver Surfer. Not the power cosmic. That's absolutely wild. This Herald of Galactus is one of the most powerful ones going, and has strength beyond compare. He can harness immense energy from the universe and channel it in different ways. On most days, barring insane divine intervention or other heroes becoming ludicrously overpowered, he's unstoppable, a force to be reckoned with. However, there have been entities that fought with Silver Surfer and came out on top. Doesn't happen often, but it isn't totally impossible. There's the wild bit from Marvel Zombies that sees this cosmic power get taken down, and there are even a few non-zombie runs where he's taken down a peg. Adam Warlock knocked him out to prevent Silver Surfer from joining a fight against Thanos. Oh, and at some point Deadpool gained the powers granted to Heralds of Galactus too, which was very interesting. Made for a good fight, that's for sure. So even the most powerful beings can be defeated from time to time, eh?